Good morning. Now for today, the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Tuesday, June 22nd, and the time now is 9:03. Notice for this budget hearing was disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was issued on June 11th, followed by June 15th, and the committee will hear and accept testimonies on Bill 55-36 COR, the fiscal year 2022 Appropriation Act as requested by the Governor, relative to the Department of Labor fiscal year budget request. I'd like to acknowledge the senators that have joined me this morning. We have the Oversight Chair, Senator Sabina Perez, Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Tony Ada, and Senator Chris Duenas. The rules for this budget hearing. Those testifying on behalf of Bill 55-36 COR relative to the Department of Labor we have Mr. Dave DeSola from the Department of Labor, and he has his staff with him. I'll give you the opportunity to recognize your staff, and I ask the staff that when you're asked a question, or if you're going to answer a question on the first time, just identify who you are, your position, and then speak, and then after that, you won't need to identify yourself no further. All right? Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying, if any. Testimonies may be read, and ending testimonies should be summarized to about 5 minutes, but you have all morning to give your testimony, okay? I know you don't need that much time, Dave. You just want to get back to your office and issue more money, and that's what I want you to do. Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you are done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda, which is the budget of Department of Labor. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing room. Proper form and quorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for this proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be asked to leave or be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. You will state your name and your title for the record. At this time, I ask the panel members to please rise so that the sergeant arm may swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, you will affirm that any and all information that you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Mr. Chair, you're all under oath. You may proceed.
Thank you, Sergeant Arm. I will now ask the Director to please begin your testimony for your budget, sir.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Dave DeSola. I'm the Director for the Department of Labor. Thank you for inviting me down here today to go over our budget. So I'll just give you a quick rundown. Our budget is not too exciting. Basically, we have no issues with the budget allotment. It comes with a small increase of $28,000 only. And of course, majority of that increase is due to salary increments and the increase in retirement benefits that occurred this year. So you loved our budget last year, so you should love it this year. And with that, I'll just kind of quickly go over what is going on with our department and then and the different programs that we're running. And if you wanted to dive into any of the particular numbers, since it's pretty much status quo, we can do that for you. So, as you know, the department, we're in full operations. We've been that way since the summer, and we've managed to keep up and handle all the different divisions. Workers' comp division, we have an attorney hired, and we are working and holding formal hearings now, and I'm glad to report that. And we're also working towards digitizing the files and updating our procedures and processes so we can have those available for the public. So that will be an ongoing process. And OSHA, when I came into office, it was in high-risk status, and we managed within the year to get out of that high-risk status. And we've been keeping up with favorable numbers, and the federal OSHA is quite pleased with what we're doing. I'm happy to also say that we managed to hire an environmental health specialist to help us with our that area of OSHA. We continue to hold clinics and visit work sites to conduct consultations and be able to give out those certificates as needed. So that I'm happy to say we're all caught up conducting those classes and moving forward. Wage and hour. When we came in there, basically wage and hour retired all our staff, and we had to rebuild it from the beginning. And I'm happy to say that the succession replacement is pretty much complete now. And we've have a very strong partnership with US DOL Wage and Hour, Patrick Candeleta's office, and they've been helping us with our workload to keep up with all the wage and hour complaints that have been filed that came in our office as we also conduct and do PUA. So we've managed to handle all the complaints that have come in and have been filing. And I'm quite happy with the new team, young, energetic crew that I have. BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, led by Gary Hiles, is doing well. They've been conducting all the reports on time. The employment reports have gone out. March was the last report, and we are currently at a 16.5% unemployment, which was a 3-point drop from December of 2020, which was 19.4. The June surveys are being conducted as we speak, and they should be completed and put together by August, which is typically the usual time. So August, we should be able to see what the new unemployment report and employment report will be before PUA expires on September 4th. Fair Employment Office is basically meeting all its needs, going out, conducting clinics, initially online through Zoom, and now doing a combination of both. We've been getting quite successful, making sure that all businesses are posting all the necessary documents, handling any complaints, and also ensuring that the minimum wage, the fair chances, and all the different postings are available and up at the different businesses. That is also going well. And of course, our AJC, the American Job Center, we are gearing up. We are working hard towards preparing for the island when PUA ends. We are seeing an increase in foot traffic, calls, and also on our Higher Guam site. I've been working very hard to hit the media to make sure that our employers know that the Higher Guam works only as good as they put in their jobs. And then, of course, the employees that are going in to look for work, if we don't have the jobs in there, they're not going to come in. So it kind of works hand in hand. So I am going to start to be releasing some videos on how businesses, to make sure if they don't already know, how to work and post their jobs, and then followed by employees, how do they put it in the resumes, how do they ask the questions correctly, so that the software can then direct them to the jobs that fit them well. There is a resume builder in there that will assist the employees on how to basically form their resume so that the fields can be recognized and the software can do what it does to put them and align them to the right type of work. So we are working closely with our established training providers to get them to work as quickly as possible to stand up as many training classes which are directly tied into work. That was really like what we would like them to do, and most of them are all in demand occupations, so we don't want to train people into work that's not there. So we continue to work with our training providers, and we are working as a team with the governor's office to look at ideas to assist a lot of the unemployed as they get off of PUA. And when we've solidify some of these ideas, I'll be glad to share them with you. PUA, I'll announce it to you today. We batched a new batch today. $17.2 million went out, of which 8.65 was in PUA, 8.5 was in FPUC, and 90,000 was in the LWA program. So out of the 17.2 million, 1.5 million is held for taxes. So the PUA program, as you know, is looking to sunset on September 4th. I haven't heard any noise from DC or from USDOL about it getting extended. Anything could be possible, but I would be surprised. So we are anticipating that it will close. And at that closure, we will start doing the closeout, the reporting. It will continue through probably June as we finish off all the appeals, work on the overpayments, start working on the closeout, the federal closeout reports, work with the OIG to make sure that all audits and the accounts are being conducted and going to get completed. And I'm quite pleased. I think that we are pretty much on track. We had we've conducted appeals, and I'm happy to say that we're pretty much current on all appeals. Claimants that have, whether it's informal or formal, and the overpayments are working well and moving forward. So other than the work that happens every time we batch through the reconciliations, the checks, the bank accounts that come back in error, there's a whole workload every time we batch that needs to be reconciled in order for all the payments to get out. But that is pretty much working like clockwork, and the program is working well. I'm happy to say Dedido is still up and running, and our call centers are doing well. So, pretty much PUA has been like a machine, just keeps it cranking out there and is working well. Our other fund, the NWG grant, which is the Dislocated Worker Grant, we've gotten initially a $1.5 million, and that was what we used to assist the government and the private sector in the recovery efforts. We've hired about 253 displaced workers from the pandemic and placed them in various positions at public health, rev and tax, all the vaccine centers, the hospitals, handing out the food, working with the mayors, all due for the recovery efforts. Of course, this is winding down, and the workers are basically are expiring. I'm happy to say 70 of those workers got work, full-time work. So I'm quite happy with that number, and I know that it's going to be increasing quickly as they starting to expire. A lot of the agencies and hospitals are picking the best and hiring them. So the whole intent of the program is working well. The rest of the balance, which is about a total of $5 million altogether, less those monies that we use for recovery, will be shifted over and will be using for training and helping the displaced workers from the pandemic get into new occupations or jobs. That program is working very well, and that's what's fueling our AJC and our training providers to move forward. Our apprenticeship program, although the COVID still continued to work well. We have close to 600 total apprentices right now, of which recently we have about 104 new apprentices, and we had about 20 graduate in the last couple months. So that is maintaining. So overall, as you can hear with my quick summary, our budget remains the same. Our operations have maintained and have been doing excellent work. We've managed to go through the pandemic and all the shutdowns and maintain operations and run a PUA program. Our people have been working nonstop this whole time, and all the way up through fall, 7 days a week, now 6 days a week, to maintain not only our current mandate, but helping with the PUA program. A lot of our people have worn multiple hats, and I really would like to commend them for not getting so burnt out that they throw their arms in the air. They continue to work hard, they continue to get this money out, and they continue to do what we need to do at labor. In ending, the only thing I'd like to ask from the legislature would be that I'd like to maintain the following miscellaneous provisions that were approved the last 2 fiscal years. That is the Department of Labor survey workers, labor law enforcement positions, and customer service representatives at labor. If we can maintain those 2 provisions, that would be appreciated. Those have helped us a lot, especially with I forgot the H2s. I forgot that area. Of course, Greg is here, the resident expert. And we are maintaining all labor certs. We currently have about 1,600 total H2s at this time. And the applications for labor search are slowly increasing. And the one thing I can say during this whole COVID and shutdown, construction has maintained itself. We've been able to maintain getting our workers in and working with with our contractors to ensure that the flow, although may have gone up and down according to the Philippines and the offices closing and opening, but overall we have maintained some of, we have maintained a steady flow of H2s coming in. Any of these areas, if you need more information, I'll be glad to expand on. But going back to what I was asking, is that other than to to still allow us to hire unclassified employees of labor survey workers, labor law enforcement, and customer service reps at labor. I would like to ask, notwithstanding any other provisions of law, a continuing appropriation to add the Manpower Development Fund in the continuing resolution for appropriated to the Department of Labor for FY21, and it shall not lapse and shall continue to be available until fully expended. That would help us a lot if you could allow us to have a continued appropriation authorization for the Manpower Development Fund.
Is that it, Dave?
I think I said enough right now. I know everybody wants to go home. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to entertain anything that you have. And thank you for those that are here.
Sure, Dave. We got a load of questions to ask you.
Oh,
But,
man.
you know, they're pretty simple.
Yeah.
Number one, for FY21, because the PUA ends on September. What is the total amount that you received or got green light to spend or to distribute? Not spend, but distribute.
So that's a good question. So as you know, US DOL has approved about $1.02 billion of set aside.
Yes.
Now, they draw down allotments as we need. And right now, I don't know what our current allotment is, but we got plenty of money. So money right now is not a problem with PUA. We have it on. We have spent, with including this batch that just happened today, if you add that in, $725 million has been distributed to this island, or will be distributed next week. So,
What would you estimate all the way to September? What is the total package?
well, if I had to, we've been averaging around 17 million every 2 weeks. So we have July, August, that's 8 weeks, about 9 weeks. So about, so what's about 10 weeks on 17 million?
You don't have to give the exact. Give us a round number so we can know what to estimate, because it can go up and down. It just varies. If it's 17 million.
Yeah, so I figure if we have 17 million times 9 weeks, so I'd say about another 150 million to go.
So you're just right below $1 billion, in other words,
Yes,
right?
I don't
Okay.
think we'll get close to $1 billion, but
Okay, approximately $1 billion. All right.
yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to also recognize Senator Brown, who joined us this morning. What is your estimate number of H2B workers for 2022? 2022, H2B workers.
Greg?
And your name is?
Oh, this is Greg Massey.
Morning, Senator. Greg Massey, ALP City Administrator. What we had put on our decision package, we're kind of estimating, 1 second, probably in the range of about 3,140. At least that's the estimate that we have. It's probably going to go a little bit higher than that. We've got some pent-up demand, so we're being very, cautious on our estimates. As soon as the Manila Embassy gets back up to full speed, we're probably going to see those numbers rise drastically.
Okay, and what is Greg, what's the status of the Manpower Development Fund?
Right now, we're tracking about 2.6 million in collections as of today. Traditionally, towards the end of the fiscal year, that's when the larger companies have their approvals. So we are hoping to meet our estimate of 3,200 work. I'm sorry, what was it?
3104?
Yeah, we're hoping to meet that estimate that we had for the last budget.
Right, all right, and more is better, but we'll work with that, right?
We're working on it, sir.
All right, thank you. Dave, do you have any prior year outstanding personnel services obligation? Because you had to restart everybody pretty much, right?
Yes.
You know, I noticed on your budget, and I've seen it on several agency budgets, I don't see the number of employees you have in your agencies. You got about 20? What's your total number of employees you have?
We have, on the local side, we have,
Dave, I just need to know how many classified, how many unclassified, and that's it, just a wrap up. Keep it
so we
simple.
have 39 classified employees. We have 72 unclassified employees, with a total of 111 employees.
Okay, 111. All right, and you made a request, a simple request to maintain, you made a simple request to maintain certain positions in your agency, correct?
Yes, existing ones.
Put that in writing, Dave, so we can address that accordingly, okay?
Absolutely.
Put in all your requests of what you need, because you guys are playing a major role for the past almost 2 years. We got to make sure that you stay on your feet and you keep the beat, okay? You know, you guys are just doing great. You know, I know you guys.
that.
I know you guys work long hours, long days. I just want to make sure that the department ever continues to do what it needs to do, and that the people of Guam get the service it hopes to get. All right. So moving along, do you have any capital outlay projects?
No,
None?
no, sir.
Good. Okay, I'm just gonna. You know the questions I'm gonna go over. Okay, Dave. I think you got that. How many military activities translate into local revenue? Do you know? Do you know what's going on in the military, the activity, the constructions and all that stuff? How much income taxes can be attributed to military-related services? Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, I'm going to skip that.
That's not us.
Although businesses are opening up, is it true to say that most workers are being picked up at part-time status and given lesser hours than getting full-time, or?
Yes, sir. I believe that to be true. And as business picks up, the hours pick up.
All right, okay. Then we just need to look forward to more opening, more business, more activities in the market. The people of Guam take their money out of the bank and go shop.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll ask the Oversight Chair for if she has any questions or comments, and we'll proceed along with Senator Shelton after, and then Senator Duenas, Senator Ada, and then Senator Brown. Senator Perez, do you have anything, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Director Dave De La Sola, and to the panel that's here today on a stormy day. So yeah, I just want to follow up with a question regarding staffing. And so in looking at the budget that was submitted, you have 42.5, and that's basically the local side. Is that what you're requesting for the local side? But I did notice in your PUA, the federal funds, there's a lot more workers there. So maybe if you can break down the local and the federal workers.
Good morning. My name is Victoria Helen Mafnas. I'm the ASO for the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor currently has 111 staffers. As the director had mentioned earlier, 72 are unclassified and 39 are classified. For the PUA, the pandemic unemployment, we have 33 unclassified employees. And for our National Dislocated Worker Program, we have 3 unclassified employees. So which the 2 discretionary programs that we're running right now as a result of COVID is 36 additional staffers.
And
Okay.
that number of PUA staff after September will drop to a smaller number to maintain the closeout through the following year.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out, I'm just trying to figure out the math here, because in the summary, it says 42, and then, so I'm assuming that the other 70 are federally funded? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so I was looking through your budget, and I didn't see any staffing pattern for the division for employment and training services. Is that all federally funded?
That is 100% federally
Okay.
funded.
Okay, good. So, because I know we had Dr. Maricata mentioning about boot camps on steroids. And would this be the division to kind of create that environment to help transfer or transform the economy so that people are going back to work? Or which division would be primarily involved with that? Of all the divisions. So you have alien labor processing, fair employment, wage and hour. So is this the employment and training services division, is that going to, are they going
That's
to,
the American Job Center.
okay, are they going to predominantly be involved in the workforce development?
That's correct.
Okay.
They continue to work with President Okada on the boot camps that she's pushing out.
Okay, and so I noticed in some of your grants, they don't expire until, at least they've been extended until like 2022, so it's beyond this budget cycle. There's only like one grant that expires in 2021, I believe. It had expired, actually. It's the Apprenticeship Expansion Grant, RD2.
That's correct. That grant expired April 2021. It expired this year.
Okay, so as far as everything else, the federal funds are still in play for multiple budget cycles according to the budget submission that I have here. So you have BLS, various federal grants. And so I guess my curiosity is, how are you what are your plans to, or is there a way to leverage these funds for workforce development? Do you have a plan or strategic plan for that?
For workforce development. So the apprenticeship program are federal grants. We are hoping that the apprenticeship program goes into formula-based funds. Right now they're discretionary, and we're hoping and crossing our fingers that it is identified as a formula-based grant. But we do anticipate on moving plans. That program is federally funded, and we will continue to use the federal funds because apprenticeship is a big benchmark for U.S. Department of Labor. So they will continue. We foresee that they'll continue to fund the apprenticeship programs.
Okay, so what I have here is about 300,000. Is that every year or for the whole from 2021 to 2024?
We anticipate, yes, 300,000. Our last grant was at 300,000, and we anticipate that would be the territory's allotment for apprenticeship if it moves to a formula base.
Okay. So in regards to the workers, so you mentioned, Director, that you expect to see a decrease in the amount of PUA workers in that division. But considering that you still have these grants, how are you going to, I guess, utilize these grants? Is there a difference in how you're going to utilize all the federal grants?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm
So
sorry.
are you going to retain these 70 workers on
Some
staff?
will, well, the ones that have been identified that are not going to be staying on, we are basically treating them like clients at the AJC. So we're assisting them in looking for work, whether it's outside or through other programs internally. So we are working with them to try to place them in employment. And they are actively basically submitting their resumes and their job applications throughout not only the government but in the private sector. So we are trying to take care of all these people.
Okay, thank you. So I did notice in the expenditures report that, what is it, the National Association of State Workforce Agencies. So in looking, I was looking at the procurement records, and so in your submission, the cost is $11,000, but in looking at the procurement records, it's $22,000. Can you explain the difference?
Because a portion of our state employment office, Guam Employment Services grant pays for a portion of it.
Okay, so is it,
JV back, yes.
okay, so yeah, it doesn't make sense because if we're spending $22,000, but in the budget it says $11,000.
Because the federal funds cover the other 11,000.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. So the other thing is so just looking at the different staffing, I was looking at the staffing for each of the divisions, and I noticed that there were some vacant, unfunded. Are those positions critical to continuing the work of the department?
I'm sorry, ma'am, did you say vacant, unfunded?
Yes, yeah. So I know there were some that you set aside, vacant positions that you would like to fill, but there's also vacant, unfunded positions. Are those necessary to fill for the agency?
No, we've been operating as best as we can with the current allotment that we've received through the governor's office. So I think we're okay.
We're okay with the amount that we are at the current, at our current operations. So we can maintain that level.
Okay, so you're saying these positions don't need to be funded then?
At this time, as we grow later on, we might have to revisit that.
Okay. So one position, I guess, is the Management Analyst 2 for the GRAP. Is that one of the priorities in filling?
Yes, the GRAP, that position handles all of the tax credits that verifies. Right now, we're underfilling it with an administrative assistant. So our office issues about $4 million a year in tax credits for the apprenticeship program. It's what we do is we have to verify all of the costs that are coming in from employers that are requesting for tax credits. And once we sign off and verify that these tax credits are accurate, I mean the training costs are accurate, then we sign off on a letter, and that goes to Revenue and Tax for their determination on whether or not that should be applied as a tax credit.
Okay, and then where are you with the hiring of that individual?
We're in recruitment right now.
Okay, great. So there's a couple things I wanted to check with, let's just clarify in the submission of the budget. So in the workload output indicators, there are certain divisions that you could see that there's a variation in the numbers that are being done. But I'm looking at Department of Occupational Safety and Health. So looking at the workload output, it basically has identical numbers for 3 consecutive years for all workload indicators. What is the accuracy of this?
I'm trying to understand your question. I'm sorry.
Okay, maybe we can provide a copy, but in the workload output for Division of Occupational Safety and Health,
Yeah.
there are workload indicators that are included in the budget. I don't know if you've got it to see that, but there's telephone complaints, telephone inquiries, field inspection, citations, trainings, accident investigations, and it's identical numbers for this 3 consecutive years.
This is a one-person operation, and those output numbers are just the status quo that happens every year. The load ebb and flows as the demand for her services are required. So we manage to maintain the demands of whatever is given to us by the other agencies, and we're just reporting the typical numbers that we receive to get every year.
Okay, so like it's pretty consistent, 12
Yes.
telephone complaints every
Yes.
year?
Pretty much on average. There's no real movement either way. Sometimes there's, like I said, certifications or things that need to be done, and then she's, it changes. But as a one-person operation, she just maintains that office, and whenever the other agencies are requirements are needed, she takes care of them pretty efficiently.
Okay. So for the GDOL contractual, the total amount in the budget, you requested $128,388. But in looking at the documents, the sole source and emergency, it exceeds that amount. Can you explain why? And a big portion was for the The Geographic Solutions, Inc.?
The sole source for the geographic solutions was for the pandemic unemployment
Okay.
module, the computer system that we're currently using to issue out the PUA benefits.
Okay, and so is this a program that you purchased how long does this purchase last? Can it still be utilized if we should implement an unemployment insurance?
Absolutely. With GSI, once the program is over and we close out our grant completely, then it's just a matter of shutting off the system. Should we ever, if Guam ever
Require.
decides to implement a UI program, there's definitely a visit, maybe not with the same vendor, but with the vendor that has the ability to provide that infrastructure.
Okay, thank you for that response. So the other questions in regards to, I know PUA is ending September 4th. Do you anticipate a lot of the claims will be, the appeals, would they have been cleared? I guess my question really is, should there be a hearing after September 4th? Are the funds still available should the appeal be successful on the claimant, in regards to the claimant?
Our PUA grant funds are available through June of 2022. So we close out in September. We have our final payment in September, and then we go through our closeout process.
And if there's any problems with any claimants, we can still pay beyond that, but no date can move farther than the 4th of September as far as filing a additional payment. So we anticipate that there'll be people catching up, because at September 4th, you can't file for that week until a week later, because it always goes for the week previous. So we anticipate for the next couple months after that to slowly finish the payout as everybody catches up filing their weekly claims, taking care of any issues that people have or questions. And we assist a lot of the Manumcos and a lot of the English second language residents with their claims. That's what the DEDIDO does. That's what our call center does, is a lot of them need assistance in catching up or paying their claims. So it'll be all a drawdown and a catch-up period as we slowly take care of everybody.
Okay, great. So regarding PUA, can you give us an estimate of how many fraudulent claims of identity theft have been identified and that have been resolved?
Fraud is in around 90,000+ claims.
Wow.
We estimate that if we were to pay that out, it would probably be like $5 to $7 billion. So our fraud efforts, I'm very proud of, and that we've worked very hard. And up until November, took up the majority of our work until we finally were able to tweak our system to catch a majority of the fraud as possible. And most of that came from off-island. People trying to slam our system with as many claims as possible and getting paid for it. And that happened nationwide. So that wasn't just Guam. So yes, since November, with our fraud efforts that are in place in the system, it's done a very good job in catching a majority of it. And then after that, we manually go through the batches. And that's one of the things that even when we batch today's batch, we circle around and do a quick audit, and we have other measures that if somebody did filter through and was batched, that we catch it before the payment goes out. So that's why we really need that 2-week period for every batch, is just to reconcile the numbers, make sure they're all good, to handle all the wrong bank accounts, reconcile all those ones that got through that are fraud measures, and stop them, pull them out, and clean it all up before payment is released.
Okay. And as far as those that are unresolved, what is the status for those that, and are there any fraudulent claims that are unresolved?
Unresolved. I'm not sure what you mean by unresolved.
Or accounts that have been placed on hold due to identity theft?
That is, it depends. If there are a local claim that is unresolved, that's basically what our adjudicators do and our team. We basically circle around, work with the clients to get them to either, most of them is because of lack of documentation, or we found a question in their documentation and they need to get it addressed. And those are an ongoing issue. And some of them is because of answering the wrong questions on the system, and the system catches it, and it needs to be corrected. So that is an ongoing, continuous issue that we constantly are working on. And we resolve and continue to resolve them. And even after September, those will be all looked at and will be started to be cleaned up and paid out if they're to be paid on past September.
Okay, thank you. In regards to, let me just, some things that I were looking through when I was looking through the budget. So there was a zeroing of contractual costs for the Alien Labor Processing Certification Division. Maybe you can explain that.
So under the Manpower Development Fund, we have several divisions. So we took that contractual cost and moved it to the director's office under Manpower Development Fund. That's all we did.
Okay, all right, thanks. Yeah, so I did notice also cost for fuel that didn't exist in the director's office. Is that another?
That's a part of it, yes.
Okay. All right. I think, so just maybe to recap, so are you planning to, it seems to be there's going to be a net decrease in employees, or is there?
Status quo.
Status quo, okay. But somehow are you going to use the employees that you have today to focus on the workforce development as PUA ends, or how are you going to manage the workforce, the staffing to assist with the recovery, the economic recovery, workforce development?
Most of that would be handled through the federal funds that have been given to us. We don't anticipate any local funds being used.
And then you're looking to keep 111 staff, is that correct?
111 staff the PUA staff will be continued through June of 22 until the end of the program, and then those staff will be finally let go or placed in other jobs. Just like what we're doing now with the 311s and all the dedido, a lot of them we are slowly decreasing in number as we are helped with the placing of these staff through the various agencies or in the private sector. So that is a continuous ebb and flow, and the program we will always help those employees try to find work. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, so basically you're going to keep status quo, the local employees, but the ones that are
Yes.
funded federally would be
Will
phased
decrease
out.
as the federal funds decrease and go away. If the program gets extended, they will all be handled through the federal funds
Okay.
until the end of the program.
One more question. So in regards to workers' compensation, do you have enough workers to handle the workload there for workers' comp?
Yes, at this time we do.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your responses.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Bears. Just keep doing what you're doing, Dave. You're doing okay.
Thanks, Senator. I appreciate that.
Senator Shelton, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll continue with the line of workers' compensation. I know there was some discussion before about improvements to your computer database. Is there any update on that?
Well, we did manage to get a couple new computers in there, and we are currently, as I mentioned, working on the updating and creating the procedures and the processes, since we have the attorney on hand now, and that's one of the projects that he's doing other than assisting me as counsel for formal hearings, which we have been conducting, which hasn't been done in the past. And so we are very excited to start moving forward with the modernization and the digitizing of workers' comp. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a process, a slow, steady process to get all those files, digitize them so that we can be able to handle any FOIAs or any requests quickly and efficiently, and also provide a proper guidance and procedures for moving forward with hearings and committee meetings and for claimants. So I'm very excited to finally get some movement at workers' comp and starting to move forward with the formal hearings. It's not a very easy or pleasant task to do these formal hearings.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
it
Glad
is
to
moving.
hear of that progress. Thank you very much. And I think Mr. Chair here asked many of my questions regarding the Manpower Development Fund, and you've discussed alien labor, the federal grants, the apprenticeship programs that you have. And I wanted to mention that I do support your ask for the Manpower Development Fund continuing appropriation, because that is an issue that we addressed in the last legislature, not only with the Department of Labor, but with the Guam Community College as well. So we know how important that is to keep the money coming in, as you know, there's a period between the fiscal years that we still need to use it when it comes in. So I do support that, and I will push the chair for that as well. I know he supports it too. And I want to commend all of you at the Department of Labor for the work that you've been doing over the past almost year and a half now to help with the PUA, the FPUC, every program that you've been able to stand up in just a short number of months. We've seen you many times over here in hearings and heard you on the radio and in the news. The stress that you've endured to be able to provide for our people during this time. We're very grateful to you and to your entire team. So Siduas Masi.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Reminder, Dave, put it in writing, okay?
Gotcha.
Just so that if we miss it in the hearing, when we go back on the notes and the transcript, don't blame me. I'll just look at you, Dave, and Greg will laugh and say, that's part of manpower. Come on now, write it up. Senator Duenas, do you have any questions or comments on to the panel, please?
Jesus Masi, Mr. Chairman, and David, and to the team, welcome. I want to echo the comments of my colleagues here saying that you guys have done some really good work, and I appreciate the team and all their efforts. You know, the unprecedented situation with this pandemic, and every program has a bumpy start, especially when it's a large magnitude. And so I want to just say that your team has done great work and continue that. I don't have much questions according to the budget. As you mentioned, it is a status quo request, basically. So I just have a couple of questions on, of course, you know, our community's anxiety over the, the sunsetting of the pool and the FPUC. David, do you have available the numbers of during your peak claims? What was the highest number that you had?
Well, you know, every time you batch, the numbers go up and down according to the people who file for their weeks. Sometimes they file for 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time, and then they don't file at all. But the best numbers, so it's so dynamic. The best number I can give you is that we probably helped about 28,000 total claimants over the period of PUA. And we feel that it is decreased, of course, as time has gone on, and we use it usually anecdotally on the amount of money that we batched. About 8 batches ago was about 25 million every 2 weeks. Now we're down to 17.
So those are individual claims, right, David?
Those are the total dollars that we give out a batch.
Okay, but when you got to 28,000, those were individual
Those were about
claims.
total claimants that filed for PUA. This year, we saw that it went down to probably around 20,000 total claimants. So we have seen a decrease. And of course, the unemployment report has also reflected from December of a 19-point-something% down to 16.5%. And of course, come August, we will get another kind of number of what the unemployment looks like just before PUA closes.
Right, and the reason why I'm going down this road, David, I think the lowest number I heard was somewhere around 9,600 claims. Was that right? Was that reported correctly? At one point, at one batching, I think there was 9,600 claims, so.
I don't remember any number like that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Do you know your lowest number?
No, like I said, it's kind of tough to get a lowest number when, like I said, one person could not have filed for a whole month and then all of a sudden they file. And some keep up, some don't, some are months behind. So they go by weeks, not by the total number of claimants at any one period of time, because I know that every batch, not everybody files their weekly. Some of them wait for, a couple weeks to do them all at once.
But it's good, because I do agree with you in terms of the number and your running totals on unemployment.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm going through this exercise is, between the administration and us, and we'll be in the budget season, there is the discussion on the 600 million and all this different conversation. And I think it's going to be important as we get a little bit closer. We're going to need to probably have, work closer with you to see those numbers, maybe even on a weekly and a bi-weekly basis, just to kind of understand the real effects. Because the truth is that, there's good news now with the Airbnb. I've been in Tumon the last couple of weekends just to see some friends and kick around, and it's coming alive. And so I think the important thing is for our community to understand is, the jobs are there are job fairs going on, there are openings, to smooth this out as much as possible, just in case there is something we do have to do, that we understand that. I get a little concerned when we make our community anxious when, sometimes in media reports and the like, we're talking about there's 28, there's 30, there's so many thousands of people. And I know there's a lot of truth to that. I don't want to, play down the fact that we need to get our people back to work, and it's going to be a very critical time in September. But I also want to make sure that we're putting out that information every time. And so my next question basically is, we've had GCC here before us, boot camps on steroids and everything else. So I just wanted to also, you're aware, did you request any funding from the ARP? And we have provided as well in our recommendation for labor.
Yes, and I appreciate you guys thinking of us. And yes, I am in talks with the governor. We are kind of studying the situation with the PUA. I'm trying to get some, it takes some programming on our system to ask for specific questions to be run. And I am currently working with the system provider to try to get us some of these updated numbers. And I anticipate putting together some kind of plan come the end of PUA.
Cool. Yeah, because just like you guys were the go-to on the FPUC and the PUA, I think you're the go-to now on the transition out, so that we can, all of us are working together to do every single thing that we can. Every day, one more job, 2 more jobs, 10 more jobs added, just really gets us closer and closer to not having this catastrophic drop-off. Your counterparts don't have this, they have a different problem, David. I think stateside is the fact that the unemployment is coming down so fast that they're having to close out their programs, some of them, to be able to do things. But that's stateside, we're here. I guess the other question, you've probably already answered this by one of my colleagues, but I just wanted to make sure we're clear. Say, for example, we did stand up some small version of what's going on, and maybe even with less compensation, but if we had to continue to help people, can we use your current system in terms of the whole process and everything else where we wouldn't be reinventing the wheel?
The current system, the system provider that we use does have unemployment in like a half a dozen states. So we could use it. The PUA program that we have is really a specialized PUA program. It really attaches to a UI program, an unemployment insurance program, and works together symbiotically with it. They can put together a unemployment insurance program for us. But as with anything else, we have to pretty much do a study to see what is needed, what is the design, and customize what it is. I think they could provide that service for us if we put it out to bid. And we need to tailor and look at, and that's what we're going to be looking at next, is what kind of an uninsurance program, what are the costs, what are the benefits, what are the negative effects of it, and put a study. Most likely we would have to come to you guys to pass possible legislation if this was something that we wanted to move forward with. And so I have been asked to look into it and get it, and see if it's feasible and get it done. So as this PUA program winds down, I'll start looking at those next steps, and we will be approaching you guys for possible legislation that would be needed in order to get a program like this if we decide to move forward with it.
That sounds good, David, because actually we do have a couple of bills in the pike right now with some of our colleagues, and some of that is subsidized employment. And it might be something we want to do because, you know, along with PUA, FPUC, and trying to smooth this out, you know, as I'm sure you're trying to do too in Department of Labor with your team, is, you know, maybe it's better to subsidize employment and let folks work with federal money and help generate the economy and move the money, as opposed to saying, well, we're going to continue this program and, you know, just go ahead and stay home and, you know, try to find a job eventually. So I think that's where we can kind of build that in, because we know also the private sector has some serious concerns about, you know, when we go to a platform of unemployment insurance, that it's something that is workable with the employee and the participation. And so that's where we want to work with you too, because many of us do have those ideas of subsidizing employment as opposed to just straight out benefits.
One of the things that I am in talks with the current system provider is the PUA is a twin brother of the DUA with disaster unemployment assistance. And we all know that we could be hit with a disaster at any time. And I'm looking at putting together the DUA software, have it there, and have it turned off in the waiting, so that if by chance we were to hit with a disaster and we needed to get funding, federal disaster funds out, we would have that program to flip the switch on, tweak it a little bit, and be able to get it out and running in a record amount of time and get those funds out. So that is something that I've been talking with the system provider, that it wouldn't cost us anything. We already pretty much, I'm not sure, but to have that system on there, turned off, and in the waiting. So if we were to ever get with any kind of disaster, we just flip it on and get it working, and we can do it at a very quick amount of time instead of having to wait for a long, or doing it manually.
That really makes sense. You know, most of the several, particularly in the restaurant industry, business people that I've been talking to, I mean, they're like, if we were to go to 100% tomorrow and you extrapolate that over a lot of the businesses, you're looking at hundreds of employees. So they're like, if you had subsidized employment prior to that and we had those workforce in the pike, we'd be ready to pick them up the minute we turned around and didn't have to worry about, you know, or not have to worry, but we would still do all our protocols, but we were back to 100% seating. So that has, you know, that's intricate to this process. So I appreciate that, Dave. Just one more question for Greg. I know this is kind of moving into the labor issue, but I had some difficulty with a bill that passed here, but I understood the need with regard to workforce housing. And, the regulatory agencies and oversight and like were having difficulty during the pandemic, so there was a need to actually pass legislation. What is the current status of your oversight on workforce housing, and, how is that going?
So workforce housing is an emerging issue that's going to affect the pace of new workers deploying. We're hoping that the industry steps up. It would be nice to maybe have some other options, that might be able, maybe a public-private partnerships to help develop workforce housing. I know the last bill was an emergency bill that kind of got through the GLUC process, but I think as the pandemic slows, as it starts to go away, that emergency bill's not going to, really make an effect. I would welcome some changes to legislation that would maybe make workforce housing a little bit easier to do. Large contractors could maybe afford to do it, but your smaller contractors have no option but to put workers in apartments, which is also kind of, in my opinion, maybe helping keep the cost of rentals higher artificially. We need to start doing something to drop those costs because families, especially young families, aren't able to afford rental housing anymore. It's definitely an issue that I'm hoping somebody takes up. I'm willing to work with anyone. Of course, land management and public works and everyone else is kind of on the forefront of that, but I have a lot of opinions and I'm willing to give my opinions on it. It is a worthy cause to look into, though, because if we can't get workforce housing, Ukuru Workforce Village was the catch-all for that before, and now that that's not really an option, we're seeing most of our workers go into commercial apartment units, and I think that's not optimal. It's okay for some, but when you get larger workforces, how do you find 30 apartments? You can't. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because, land management during that time is represented, and I understand the difference between approved and constructed, but it seems like they're still on the books up to 20,000 capacity and capability. So maybe I'm going to ask.
No, there's not. That's just the old Ukuru Workforce Village numbers. On the books, the Ukuru Workforce Village that's owned by Cortec right now has 18,000 worker capacity, but they've only got, I believe, and I'm under oath, so if I'm wrong on my numbers, don't get me, but I think they only have like a 23 or 2,500.
That's what I mean. It's not built out, but
right.
But as far as I just think so. Your monitoring and everything else is going well because I noticed they had a great response on a couple of outbreaks as well with regard to COVID. But monitoring is not an issue at this point.
Well, we are at Labor are kind of we're the catch-all, but actual monitoring of workforce housing is actually a public health responsibility, and with other agencies like EPA, land management, public works. We kind of go in just to kind of shore up the gaps and make sure that if we see something, then we get it to the agency that's responsible.
So Dave, I think this is something we need to possibly, after the budget season as well, maybe we'll sit down and jump on another roundtable on this one, because I know at least for the next 5 to 8 years, maybe 10 years out, there still is that large construction and how it affects, our local labor force too. So I think this workforce housing issue needs to come to the forefront as well. You got some opinions on it?
Yes, and I agree. It is being looked at very carefully by the military and by the contractors because they understand they're the ones that are going to be affected by it the most. And so they are exploring a lot of different ideas and it's being looked at a lot right now. So as anything gets developed or comes out, we'll be glad to share.
Sounds good. I'll work with the chairman. I'm sure he's going to be quite interested in it as well. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all for me for now.
Thank you, sir. And yes, we will work together on those issues you brought up. Senator Adder, do you have any comments or questions for the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just perhaps just a question or two. Thank you, Dave, and to your entire team for this past year and a half. I mean, everything that the Department of Labor crew has done over the years has been greatly appreciated, but more so this past year and a half, getting unemployment, out to the folks that we're needing, and, hopefully we'd be able to see some end to it, but as it transitions from PUA FPUC to reemployment of our people and, getting them back into the workforce. Dave, you were mentioning that this last batch that went out was 17.2 million, right? And that 8.6 was PUA, 8.5 FPUC. 1.5 million, that was collected for tax?
Yes.
Okay, so we have about another estimate, about 13.5 million in taxes to collect with the remaining payments for FPUC, for the PUA FPUC.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The remaining tax collection, so with the remaining weeks that are left, right? Because I think we estimated about 150 million was left to be paid out for another 9 weeks. And we estimated that at 1.5 for the next 9 weeks. That came out to about 13.5 million, right?
That, in additional taxes, I
Right.
would say, I'd say about 10 to 13 million more should be
Yeah.
coming in. We have a total of about close to 60 million that's been totally collected throughout the whole program.
How much was that? How much did you say?
About $58.7 million has been collected in taxes as of, not including this batch.
58.7 million. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a good amount. That's great to hear. And then otherwise, all the other questions that were asked were actually answered, and some of those were some of the issues that or concerns that I had as well. So I at this point I don't have any other questions except thank you for all your hard work again. We look forward to working with the chairman on on OFB and also your oversight chair to see how we can continue to support Department of Labor and their mission in keeping our people employed and looking out there for jobs, and whatever it is that you guys do to continue that, or we'd like to be there to help you guys and support you guys in your mission. But
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Brown, do you have any questions or comments for the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're still here with you. You're not alone on this rainy morning. Thank you so much to Director De La Sola and your staff for coming and providing your presentation for your budget for Department of Labor. I wanted to ask, as I'm looking through your budget, I see some of your divisions. I mean, you certainly have a number of areas that your department covers that you're almost down to like one employee essentially running those sections. Are you still able to meet the requirements, like your Division of Occupational Health and Safety, your wage and hour, you have one employee there, alien labor processing certification, occupational employment statistics. Then I also noticed, I guess, your senior community service, you have a couple people there, but are you still able to meet your mandates and requirements with the employee? I guess in some divisions, the employee that you have listed, because you just have, some of them just have one person tasked and vacancies in those positions.
That's only with DOSH. The others are, you may be only seeing the locally funded side of the equation.
Uh-huh.
The others might have other staff that are either paying through the special funds, that's the MDF funds for
Okay.
wage and hour and ALPCD.
Well, is there a way we could get the budget? I mean, whether they're local or federal, they're assigned to that division. I mean, I would want to look at a comprehensive budget, so I'm assuming that what I'm looking at are those positions. You have them segregated, who's federal from I mean, you can still put that in the same division, but indicate who's federal and who's not. You have that for your deputy director, where funds are divided, so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
We
to be
can-
as accurate for us, because we're not looking at 2 or 3 versions of a budget.
Okay.
So are those divisions that I read off, have more than one employee?
Not the Division of Occupational Safety and Health. They are a single
only
employee.
Okay, but what about the others? There's a different category that's federal that's not?
Yes, our federally funded is not in, our federally funded staff are not incorporated into the budget that is submitted.
Okay, but I think
Only
we-
a federal staffing
Yeah.
pattern
Well,
is attached.
can we get that? Because we'd like to see, whether it's federal or local, I mean, it's funds received on behalf of the people of Guam. So I, as a senator looking over a budget for labor, I would want to know what else is at the table. If it's federally funded, it's government.
Okay.
No
Do we
problem.
have that submitted? I didn't see this in this.
It's not submitted.
in
We
this.
submitted the federal staffing pattern, but it's not incorporated into the way the budget has, BBMR has their budget laid out. It doesn't call for federal staffing in the budget layout.
Okay, but I think we generally want to know
We can provide
what
it
the
for you, though.
operational capabilities are in
Okay.
funding of every department and agency. Mr. Chair, I don't know, is that the standard process now? I mean, I'd want to assume that every budget we're looking at is truly reflective of the operational cost of the department and agency that we are reviewing the budget on. Is this standard? I mean, this exception that we don't see the funding, the federally funded side? I've been at this business a few years, but, you know, this is the first time hearing of it, so.
The federal side, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, I mean, why is it not incorporated in the budget so that we have a clear picture of what the funding is, the overall funding is for the government agency that we're reviewing?
We can request for that, but that's not normal. I just wanted to know the local side first.
Okay.
And then I've asked all the oversights to make sure that they get their oversight agencies to promote whatever federal money is there. Because we don't fund you federally, only locally, so. But
No, I
it is
understand,
interesting
but I
to
mean,
know
it
where
would
you're at.
also make us determine whether or not what we're going to fund on the local side, if we know it's, you know, it's funded by the federal government. I mean, I want to ensure that as we're looking at every government agency, we have a clear picture
We'd be
of what
glad
the
to
overall
give it to you.
funding requirements are so that we know. I mean, as the public should. It would be good if you could submit that to the committee so that we could also review it before we go into the budget hearings. One of the things I certainly think we can concur in complimenting your agency and having to gear up, obviously, for this pandemic and what we've been through. You certainly, in addition to the public health side of the house and the Guam Memorial Hospital, been like the key visible agency because of the services that you're providing to our community, particularly those that are unemployed or have reduced work hours as a result of the pandemic, and having to gear up for that. I mean, you've certainly been very good in getting out there and providing the information to the public and updating them, and also relaying to them, as far as you know, come September, are you anticipating any further, or pretty much are you getting the message on the federal side that this will bring to a conclusion the funding that our employees out there are receiving for unemployment benefits that they're receiving?
It's, as far as what I can see, that's going to be the end. Now, when it comes to politicians in D.C., anything is possible, but everything that I see looks like it's going to end. Time will tell.
Well, I think it's a good information to put out there. Of course, the challenge now is whether or not the jobs are going to be there. Particularly, obviously, we see the challenge in the tourism industry as a result of what's happened with this pandemic, and the hope that slowly but surely we'll be able to build up that capacity so the workers, you know, can go back and return, or maybe as a result of this might want to look at other alternative employment, but to have employment available. With regards to the alien workers coming in for construction, where are we with that now? I mean, of course, for quite some time, it's primarily only been accommodating workers on the base for military projects, or even on the civilian side, but related to support of the military buildup. And then we heard that, oh no, you know, as a result of these cases, that, you know, we can once again in the local community be able to have workers come in to work on local projects. And also for residents that may want to build, you know, our citizens want to build a home or an extension or whatever the case may be, private company may want to build something. What is the status of that now? Where are we? Because I'd heard some contractors were hesitant because I guess they have to pay a certain fee to go down that road, and they're not quite sure as to whether or not are they going to get approval. And can you update on that? Update us on that, Mr. Massey,
Sure.
on where things are?
Sure, Senator. So at this point, there's been a little bit, the last National Defense Authorization Act that was passed did have some language that stretched that, what we call an Ndaa exemption, which allows for workers to, contractors don't have to prove what's called temporary need, which has been the stumbling block, because immigration since 2016 has basically clamped down on that, and that's what started all the denials back in 2016. The last NDA had some expansive language in it that allowed for contracts that are supporting or contracts that are adversely affected by the military realignment. That's relatively new. The guidance on that came out just, maybe a month ago. So immigration attorneys are still trying to wrap their heads around how to apply that. It's not as easy, and it's not what it was purported to be, the fix. It's not the fix. The only fix is going to be a standalone immigration bill that kind of gives local government a little bit more control over a temporary need. So we're still kind of status quo. We are at the largest number of workers. I mean, it fluctuates up and down. As of when I left the office this morning, we were at 1,544 workers. That's going to go back up when some more deployments come in. But we are at the highest number in about a decade. So, we can't say that we're cut off from the H-2 program. They do have to have a nexus to the military realignment, and that nexus, like the Sabaki Hotel, for instance, that's not a military project, but that was approved and built.
Sure.
Pretty much anything that's infrastructure and housing developments are getting through. It is still kind of shut out on your single-family homes, your families that want to go and get a home loan and build their own home. But there's also a silver lining to that side, because we do also need to leave jobs for local workers and, and apprenticeship programs and things like that. We still hope to get some more expansion on the H-2 situation, but that's kind of where we're at right now. It's not completely fixed, but I'd say we're maybe 80% fixed on the H-2 program.
So we're not able, local contractors, small local contractors still not able pretty much then to bring in H-2 workers for construction? Is that where we're at, unless it's related, again, support-based to the military? That has not changed. Pretty much where we're at. Contractors have been reluctant to try to use just the regular vanilla H-2 process because after 2016 and 2017, and, we've kind of found that, or contractors have found that they're just not able to get through that process and get an approval with USCIS. Do we have, I know it was a national issue, but did we have a major issue with violations with regards to these contract workers coming in terms of compliance, and then when their time has completed, returning back to their country of origin? That was a national issue. The whole H-2 crisis started with the Congress increasing there's a cap of workers nationally that can be brought in, and in 2015, Congress increased that cap. The unions pushed back, and then it started this ripple effect. We were kind of an unintended casualty to that ripple effect. Then recently, the Philippines was taken off 2 years ago, the Philippines was taken off the list. Again, that was more national problems with Filipino workers than it was here. We've got a really strong H-2 program here, and we've got an isolated island, and, so we'll have some overstays, but not thousands like you would have in the U.S. mainland. And a lot of that was also due to some potential, human trafficking issues. Again, in the mainland, more with your domestic servant type of, you don't really get human trafficking in construction. Construction workers from the Philippines, they'll come to our office and complain. They speak English. They know where to go and where to get help. Again, unintended consequence. This year we did get, the Philippines was put back on the list, so it did ease up. It was never a ban. There was a lot of extra red tape to get through it, and the National Defense Authorization Act helped us get through that. That's why we have our numbers up. But Philippines is back on the list. It's eased up a little. Now we're just waiting for the embassy to kind of get back up to speed after COVID. And hopefully with that faucet's back on. I'm sure with the COVID situation, I can imagine the amount of workers worldwide, if we just use the Philippines as an example, that have had to be returned back and, because of COVID, are unemployed. And certainly I'm sure the need is there, but of course we have to get through that whole process. I appreciate the update. I did want to ask Director De La Sola with regards to your funding as well for workers' comp, which I've always had for some reason a particular interest in, because I've seen abuse of that in the government of Guam. Do you have investigators that the Department of Labor has to go and review and investigate cases of misuse of workers' comp? Because we've had, that's a common story, Anna. They don't show up for work, but we saw them at the fiesta, or they're, see them out and about town, and they're not coming to work because, unfortunately and nationally, I mean, abuse of workers' comp is pretty common. It's not an uncommon thing in terms of crimes that are committed. What is your status with regards to that? Because I see you have 4 employees listed there, but do you have the capability of investigating such allegations? I mean, to actually investigate and track individuals that may be abusing the system? Because I understand annually employees that are under this have to go back, get a medical evaluation, determine that they, for example, are still incapable of coming back to work and performing their work, or maybe looking at alternate positions. But I've always been curious about that capability, because in the time I've actually run an agency, and that's been about 12 years collectively, I've not seen that. And yet I am aware of workers' comp abuse and reports that come back that, now at least I can provide video of individuals that claim they're not fit for duty or they can't come to work. But even I've seen it in my own department, seen employees that can't come to work, but they're at the fiesta, and I'm running into them. So, the opportunity is very ripe for abuse. There's individuals that continue to come back and take advantage of it, and not really much is done about it. So I'm just curious, how does your workers' comp division, with the only 4 people you have assigned, how do they investigate those claims? Because we're talking sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars of public money that is misused and abused in this government.
Well, with the loss of the investigators at workers' comp, we kind of had to adapt. And the way we are able, of course, nothing's better than to have an investigator in workers' comp. That would always be great. But since we don't, we managed to use wage and hour investigators to help us if we do get a report or a need for an investigation for workers' comp. That hasn't been as prevalent as it used to be in the past, and maybe it's because we don't have a direct investigator. But as it does arise, we do have other labor law enforcement specialists in the department that we basically borrow and shift around. And that's the good thing about labor, is that we do help each other out, and we do those investigations as needed.
Well, I know there are challenges within the budget, but I certainly would like to see, and perhaps can be looked at, as actually hiring one that specializes in workers' comp, specifically in workers' comp investigations. Just because I've seen it myself over the years in the government of Guam, and I hate seeing this type of abuse. I mean, I think we have a privilege to be able to work for the public, to be able to have a job, and individuals or public officials that take advantage of that is very bothersome, I think, to our community. Certainly the efforts also of your department. I mean, just the most recent case that we heard about in the news, of having an employee that's there to assist and supposed to be assisting our people facilitate these payments, unfortunately take advantage of that situation. And I'm very happy to hear that your department was able to zero in on it, take note of it, and take appropriate action so that that misuse didn't continue. And I think you're being commended for that. I mean, it's unfortunate when these things happen. It's disturbing when it happens, because you don't understand why people who have been given such an opportunity would take advantage of it and abuse it, especially money that's going to people in our community that really need the money. But at the same time, I commend you and your staff at your department for finding these things out and taking appropriate action as needed. I think you're to be commended for that, and making sure that everyone that's there is doing what they're supposed to be doing and doing it properly. So thank you for that. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any further questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Dave,
Yes, sir.
Is there still time for the reinstatement of the job search requirement?
Yes, that is something that we are studying the climate on the island and briefing the governor. It's at her discretion. We're kind of teetering. There are hundreds of jobs that are opening. They're not thousands. But we do need to get our people up and starting to do job search. So personally, I feel the job search requirement is more for them to learn and to go through the exercise and to work the job search, so that when September comes and there's no more PUA, they are already familiar with how to work the job search, how they got the resumes in there, and how to conduct, through the internet and a more efficient way to look for possible jobs opens. So I am still anticipating sometime in July turning it on for the balance of the period so that the claimants can put in their resumes and start working the job search. So when it does close, they already have a couple steps ahead of the job searching program. So it is something that I am in talks with. And US DOL also has asked us to give them advance notice because they are also interested if we are going to turn it on or not.
All right. Part of the pool, the $1 billion, estimated about $1 billion that you've issued, you do get an administrative cost figured into that, right? How much does that come up to? Because I think that's more kind of like related to what Senator Brown was bringing up. You get federal money, you get administrative costs, it offsets what you need, and maybe that's why you just want a status quo, because with all the grants you're getting, you get administrative costs and it helps you keep going. So I'm just curious, how much does that come up to?
For the pandemic unemployment, we have about $5 million in administrative costs.
All right, good. Yeah.
And, that has benefited the island too because we issue so many checks that we automated the check printing process down at DOA, and that will help us after the pandemic to get checks out a lot more efficiently than printing and stuffing. And so I do like to thank DOA. They, every 2 weeks, send out thousands of checks and deposits, and they are a very close working partner of ours, and I want to thank them for their hard work in getting the money out as we batch. Thank you, Senator.
All right, thank you, Dave. Continue what you're doing. And I thank all your staff. I'm going to tease Greg because I need to find out where we at Manpower and all that stuff, but that's something that he works with. But, that being said, and my colleagues have asked all the questions they could ask today, but as soon as we get the additional reports from you, I want to be able to share with all my colleagues, because we want to make sure that we allow you the opportunity to do, or give you the opportunity to do what you need to do.
Thank you.
Because the people of Guam actually look forward to, you did a lot for the people of Guam. We just need now the people of Guam to respond. Go look for jobs now. The jobs are there. There's announcements all over the place. Guam is ready. It's opening up. Don't get behind the power curve, because then you can't say, well, Dave didn't show me. No. GCC wasn't available. Not. There's nobody hiring. You're late. You snooze, you lose. That being said, the committee will conclude this budget hearing with the Department of Labor. The committee will continue to receive testimony. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at gmail.com or to my office located at Rand Care Building, 2nd floor, Suite 3, South Marine Corps Drive. Since much for attendance and participation in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. This budget hearing for Bill 55-36 COR relative to the Department of Labor is now adjourned. It is 10:36. Dave and your staff, please take care, and thank you for all that you do. Take care.